very well against the Islamic Republic of Iran. They got some evil intentions. We cannot let them have a nuclear weapon.
No hesitation from President Trump now weighing a massive attack on Iran as strikes escalate across the Middle East. And a new round of double-digit tariffs hitting Americans' trade partners today. How the price you pay could change as the new tax takes effect against 60 countries.
My interest in executing that warrant is not specific to Benjamin Netanyahu, but to anyone who they put a warrant towards for war crimes and crimes against humanity.
New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani's calls to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu dividing Democrats. A wave of progressive newcomers is shaking up the party of the midterms. Good morning from NewsNation headquarters in Chicago. I'm Nick Smith. The possibility of diplomatic end to the war in Iran hanging in limbo, with Iran reportedly rejecting a U.S. ceasefire proposal on Thursday, mediated by Iraqi officials. This as the U.S. military carried out its 13th straight night of attacks, targeting Iran's missile and drone capabilities along the Strait of Hormuz. And now more U.S. troops are heading to the region, expanding the president's military options as he weighs next steps. Mr. Trump telling Axios in an interview that he is considering a massive attack on Iran. That would be bigger than the bombing campaign seen under Operation Epic Fury.
We're doing very well against the Islamic Republic of Iran. We're doing extremely well. They would like to do something, but I say they're not ready yet. They need more of the same.
Meanwhile, the Secret Service issuing a scathing warning ahead of tonight's rescheduled White House Correspondents' Dinner as domestic threats tick up 40%, with already 3 assassination attempts on the president's life. There's now airport-style security in place around the nation's capital. NewsNation has you covered on all these stories and more. For the latest on the escalation with Iran, we have Jessica Kartalja in Doha, Qatar. Tom Dempsey is tracking security measures in Washington, D.C. But first, we begin with Washington correspondent Corey Smith at the White House. Corey, good afternoon. What else do we know about this massive attack on Iran that the president is speaking about?
Well, in short, Nick, not much, and that is certainly raising the suspense and speculation over what this massive attack would look like. What we do know is the president is not showing any signs of de-escalation here. He's doubled down on threats to attack Iranian bridges and power plants, floated the idea of widening the conflict and going after the Houthis in the Red Sea. Now he's teasing this major decision. The president telling Axios, quote, "I am close to making a decision. We are all set for it." President Trump says Iran wants to negotiate, but they're not prepared to make a deal. Ending that conversation with Axios saying they haven't received enough pain yet. Here's more from the president on Thursday.
Everyone is gone. They have no radar. They have no anti-aircraft. They have no nothing. Other than they're mean and they're smart and they still have some capability. But 4 months ago, trust me, they were much, much stronger.
But, Nick, those are just words. What about actions? Well, over the course of these 13 consecutive nights of airstrikes, the U.S. has expanded its target list beyond the Strait of Hormuz and upped the firepower. The military also moving more B-1 bombers, refueling jets, medical personnel into the region. All signs military experts say point to a return to all-out war. Now, adding even more intrigue, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says President Trump has invited him to the White House next Tuesday. Could that play a role in the timing of this decision? Is something we'll just have to wait and see. Nick?
Corey, the House and the Senate seem to be split on reining in the president's war powers. Do you have more information about that and where things stand?
Yeah, you go back to yesterday. It was another day, another vote on war powers resolutions in Congress. Some lawmakers really desperate to try to assert some sort of authority over the president in this conflict. A war powers resolution barely passed the House Thursday, largely along party lines, except for the 4 Republicans who sided with Democrats. But it was a different story over in the Senate where a joint war powers resolution failed. Now, that measure, because it's a joint resolution, would have carried the force of law. So if it had passed the Senate and maybe passed the House, it would have gone to President Trump's desk for his signature or a veto. Nick, back to you.
Corey Smith live at the White House. Corey, thank you. Let's send it over to NewsNation national correspondent Jessica Kartalja live in Doha, Qatar. Jessica, good afternoon. The U.S. has been ramping up strikes on Iran along the Strait of Hormuz. So much activity happening in the region. It seems to change by the hour. What can you tell us about what's happening right now?
Right, this tit for tat continues, these war of words over social media, Nick. Every hour, as you said, something changes. CENTCOM, however, confirming that last night was the 13th consecutive night of strikes. The latest U.S. military strikes targeted Iranian military sites all across the country, including a Revolutionary Guard naval base, and drone facilities on Qeshm Island, and targets throughout several provinces. Iran says it has continued targeting U.S.-linked military facilities in Jordan and Kuwait, and explosions were also reported near a U.S. military base in Erbil, that's in northern Iraq. The Pentagon says the war has already cost the U.S. $37.5 billion. Also, oil prices have surged above $100 a barrel before pulling back today as the war in Iran threatens two of the world's most important and most crucial shipping routes. Iran-backed Houthi forces attacked two Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea. They're also threatening to block Saudi-linked shipping through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And these attacks have prompted additional commercial ships to reroute, which has caused shipping insurance costs to skyrocket. Trump also says that Iran could be forced to pay for damage to commercial ships using Iranian funds that are frozen by the United States. And this conflict really continues to play out on the world stage. After meeting with leaders in Asia, Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters that just like the United States, China does not support any tolls being placed by Iran on the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, Nick, that means there is just this shared concern over both shipping routes still being closed today.
And Jessica, quickly, has there been a mood shift now that we know that there's been attacks by the Houthis down in Yemen? What has all of that had to do with the mood and how things are kind of playing out now?
You know, at this point, everybody just wants this to end, and mediators are still pushing for a ceasefire or something to put this all to rest. You know, here in Doha, we're seeing life go on as normal. And Nick, there was a mandatory stop on all boating in our area today. All of the boats are out. People are enjoying it. It's incredibly hot here. But again, everyone is watching these updates very closely and hoping that they can iron something out before the president decides to move forward and do something more drastic.
Jessica Kartalia live in Doha, Qatar. Jessica, thank you. Meanwhile, President Trump is imposing double-digit tariffs on dozens of our closest trading partners. 60 countries are seeing a brand new import tax today. The same day, temporary tariffs were set to expire. NewsNation White House correspondent Libby Dean is tracking this for us. Libby, good afternoon. What is the administration's reasoning for this new round of tariffs after that Supreme Court ruling?
Hi, Nick. Just as that one tariff policy expired, we're seeing the Trump administration slap on a new one, but under a different legal authority. This replaces that 10% global tariff with new import taxes. They range from 10 to 12.5%, affecting nearly 60 countries, that including the European Union. And they are now in effect currently as of 12:01 this morning and cover about 99% of goods coming into the United States. And the explanation for these tariffs, you asked about that, Nick, is that these countries allege imports of goods made with forced labor. U.S. trading partners, though, including China, Japan, and Australia, they pushed back on Friday against these, arguing the levies are completely unjustified. And the EU foreign policy chief said this.
If you compare our labor laws to the ones of the United States, I mean, people have paid vacations. We have very good conditions, labor conditions for our employees. So it's not really grounded. We had a deal with America, and we have kept to that deal, that side of the deal.
These new tariffs come after this investigation into whether other countries subject the U.S. to unfair competition. But some on Capitol Hill have criticized this as they see it more of a reconstruction of this tariff policy as a whole after that Supreme Court ruling, Nick.
And Libby, Canada is coming into focus with the U.S. imposing a major tariff on one of our closest neighbors.
Yeah, and they've been in focus really all week because this has been a back and forth. But that 50% tariff on billions of dollars worth of Canadian imports, that does go into effect in less than a month. It's not in effect right now. And you're seeing the Vermont senator, which of course Vermont borders Canada. Senator Welch said this.
Number one, people in Vermont are really freaked out about the tariffs on Canada. We've had very, very close relations with our Canadian neighbors. They're neighbors, they're friends. We've had commerce back and forth, the tourism industry, skiing, but a lot of manufacturing. And of course, the president doubled down on these tariffs. He just announced 50% increase in tariffs on everything from hockey sticks to maple syrup.
Canada isn't backing down. Prime Minister Mark Carney says the country is prepared to respond if those tariffs do ultimately take effect, raising the possibility here for another round of retaliatory tariffs between the two of the world's biggest trading partners. But there also is the possibility, Nick, for some kind of trade deal between Canada and the U.S. as this tit for tat continues. But this latest tariff policy coming as President Trump has really utilized tariffs as a way to negotiate when it comes to foreign policy. So we'll see what comes as these go into effect today. Nick?
Libby, I feel like we're in a situation where we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out. Libby Dean live at the White House. Libby, thank you. In a few hours, President Trump will step up to the podium at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The annual event had to be rescheduled after a gunman opened fire at the gala back in April. Tonight's event will be a different venue, a different location, this time at the Waldorf Astoria, with a smaller ballroom and fewer guests. It comes amid a sharp increase in threats to the president and others protected by the Secret Service. NewsNation's Tom Dempsey is live outside the Waldorf Astoria in D.C., where security is already in place. Tom, good afternoon. How do you expect this event today to be different from back in April?
Hey, Nick, good morning from Washington, D.C. Actually, just in the last hour, we saw crews putting up metal barricades outside the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, formerly the Trump International Hotel. And that's presumably because we might see some large crowds later tonight, or maybe even possible protests with President Trump expected to speak here later tonight. But like you said, this rescheduled White House Correspondents' Dinner comes after that man breached security during the original event back in April. And that man was armed with guns and knives and shot at a Secret Service agent, leading to President Trump being rushed off stage nearby. Investigators identified the suspect as 31-year-old Cole Allen, who actually traveled cross-country from California and checked into the hotel the day before the shooting. He now faces multiple charges, including attempted assassination of the president. The Secret Service saying an advance team got sent here to the hotel to plan for tonight's event. But this all comes after the director of the agency recently told reporters that the Secret Service has opened over 10,000 investigations this year alone, dealing with threats against the people and places the agency protects. And compared to last year, the agency has seen around 10 times the number of mental health-related interventions with people making threats. During tonight's event, the Secret Service officer shot during the first event back in April. He's going to be honored. We're talking about police officer Victor Gonzalez. He's going to receive a special award after the Secret Service said he placed himself in harm's way and confronted the suspect before getting shot in his protective vest. In a statement announcing this award, White House Correspondents Association member Weijia Zhang wrote, quote, "Officer Gonzalez played a significant role when he ran toward danger so that thousands of others could make it home safely. His courage stemmed from a dedication to service, which we are looking forward to honoring this week." And also as part of the festivities tonight, Nick, scholarships and journalism awards will be given out. And we expect President Trump to give his big speech. That's going to be the big thing to watch for. It's slated to begin shortly before 9 p.m. Eastern time. Nick?
Tom, you talked about scholarships and awards. Employees from the Washington Hilton will also be recognized, correct?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting to see, Nick, hearing about the stories behind the staff at this hotel where this original incident took place back in April. The staff being lauded by the White House Correspondents Association for staying, at their posts and, helping guests escort safely out during this chaotic scene and this police response. I also thought it was interesting hearing that, there were 2,000 guests at this original event, and the hotel staff worked to preserve all those meals and instead gave those meals to a local food shelter. So, again, they're going to be honored as well tonight, Nick.
Tom Dempsey, live in our nation's capital. Tom, thank you so much. Here now is former FBI agent Dennis Franks to walk us through what we can expect this evening and the security procedures in place. Agent Franks, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Nick.
Let me ask you this question right off the top. Will tonight's security have a bigger footprint than back in April, or is it even necessary?
It is necessary, and I think it's already ramped up probably threefold just based on what's there already. My understanding is there will be a single access entrance only for those attending the event. There'll be screening of them. After the initial screening, there will be magnetometers that they go through by Secret Service personnel, and they have to have a unique electronic ID with QR code plus a government ID to be able to get in. Not only that, but as always, the perimeter is crucial. There's lockdowns of streets, there's patrols out. I'm sure there's all kinds of detection equipment out there. So it is ramped up as far as I can tell, and the procedures are definitely different than the last time.
And Agent Franks, I ask that because when we talked about the incident back in April, one of the things that was highlighted by officials was that the perimeter worked. It did what it was supposed to do, which is why I asked you the question was today's extensive barrier protocol, or adding 4 times what you were saying before, is that necessary?
I think it is necessary. And as you said, the incident that occurred, he was actually stopped about 120 yards away from the actual stage, which is a good distance. So I think that's an important point to make here. But this is ramped up more. I don't know how far the screening is from the ballroom, but I'm sure they have all the precautions in the world. The Secret Service historically has done a great job. One of the leaders in the world of protection. They've had some, there have been some incidents recently where there's questioned about the, procedures and so forth. But I think from what I can gather, this event is probably the best, security that has been provided in any, situation like this.
And Agent Franks, the Secret Service is always on alert. They say that they're dealing with an unprecedented number of threats against the people they are serving to protect. More than 10,000 potential threats so far this year. And the Secret Service director says it's the most he's even seen. Is it more threats or just better detection and reporting?
I think it's a combination. I think there are more threats. I think for some reason, in our society now, there's been a proliferation of grievances, and I think people that may have had grievances tended to just hold them in, but now they seem to come out more. And I think there's certain situations, publicity and things like that encourage those who do have ideological or personal, grievances to act out, as opposed to, in the past, a decade or so ago. So I think that's the case. And my understanding is the Secret Service has even gotten more proactive and gone out and interviewed, people that have posted something online or they have information about. There have been, with sometimes help a family to get intervention, sometimes commitments, and they evaluate the threat, based on the person's intent, the ability, and means. And this, I think the fact that they're going out and evidently they have the resources now to go out and do this, being more proactive on the front end.
Agent Franks, have about 30 seconds there. President Trump has faced 3 assassination attempts just in the last 2 years. Has the Secret Service made the necessary changes to better protect the commander-in-chief?
I don't know the full scope of that, but I gathered that they have. I think they've ramped things up. I think they've had trouble with resources, quite frankly, and maybe the funding is improved. My understanding, they have had more funding, which is crucial. And I think they've taken, you always learn from past mistakes. You always have to anticipate other things that you haven't encountered. And a big concern right now is drones. And I think they're doing everything they can. There's technology out there to defend against that, but it is a rising concern.
Agent Franks, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Still ahead, day 4 of the preliminary hearing involving singer David. What prosecutors are focusing on today in the teen murder case. Plus, Mayor Mamdani backing off his previous promise to arrest Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The move now leaving Democrats divided. And the National Guard deployed to West Virginia as millions along the East Coast brace for more dangerous flash flooding.